What's wrong, David?
I'm feeling it again.
Feeling what?
The stress of what might happen now that Harris is not going to be our president.
I feel it too. And that's why this week on Queer Money, episode number 562, we're sharing 5 post-election money moves for LGBTQ plus people to take starting now. So let's get started now.
The mission of Queer Money is to financially empower the LGBTQ plus community. Join us in thanking Capital One for supporting that mission.
Well, I don't think there's any other way to say it, but that was a shit show. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the red wave that we were warned about in 2022 apparently came 2 years late. I am stunned. What I can't wrap my head around is, even if you don't agree with all of Harris's policies, I still don't understand how we could vote for, so many in our country could vote for the alternative.
And the main reason why a lot of people said that they wouldn't vote for Harris is because they didn't understand what her policies were and what kind of changes she would make. And 47, I'm going to try to never say his name again. 47 has decided, or he told people that he had concepts of ideas, which I don't know how a concept of an idea is any better than not having a plan when her plan was completely laid out.
If he was held to the same standard as she was held, she would be president.
Yes.
He was given all sorts of forgiveness and we're going to look past that comment. We're not going to worry about that. He doesn't have an idea for X, Y, and Z. He has concepts of ideas, but whatever. But I think that most urgently and more importantly for us and our podcast and the message that we are spread about fiscal security, or ideally abundance, is even though that he tried to distance himself from Project 2025, we know already that Steve Bannon and others of his ilk are already talking about how actually that was the plan all along, even though they tried to make us think otherwise. I guess they thought we were as naive as some of their voters.
Well, I think what it proves is that they truly did believe that, one, we were either naive or that it was okay to lie to us. And that's what's happening right now, is now people are, and we even have some conservative friends who are like, I can't watch the news right now. They are surprised and it's very
classic
irritating.
Conservatives, people that still hold some of the same values that conservatives seem to held just 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But so if you haven't listened to what Project 2025 is all about, if you're not familiar with that, I don't know many LGBTQ plus people who aren't. But if you need to be reminded, we encourage you to check out Queer Money episode number 522. You can check that out on your favorite podcast player and YouTube. That's where we talked to Senate candidate David Roth from Idaho. He gave us all the ins and outs of what Project 2025 will be. I think it's a good start if you're not familiar with it. If you're then wondering how all of this is being financed, and how 47 got financed, what's financing all this LGBTQ plus hate, what they're going to use to help finance a lot of Project 2025, we encourage you to check out Queer Money episodes 386 and 428, also on your favorite podcast player and YouTube. Those are where we talk about the anti-LGBTQ plus industrial complex and how the religious right specifically are using tax advantage donor advised funds to fund the hate, essentially. So if you're looking for what the apparatus is, how this is being funded and what's going to happen, we highly encourage you to check out those 3 episodes. But this particular episode is to start to figure out what can we do as individuals at a granular level to start to prepare ourselves to push back. As we've said before, now it's time to switch pride from a party to an actual call to action.
I'm not asking you to pick up a brick.
No.
What I am asking you to do is to pick up your dollars and do something with them, because the election was 100% clear proof that millions of people in this country put money over morals, put money over values, and put money over their friends and family. And if that's the case, then we need to use the most powerful tool that we have that they can see, and that is our money, to figure out how do we get back to a place where we are not worried about our safety. And I think that's what's really most important here, that this really is about us getting to a place where we don't feel insecure financially, and for that reason we have the energy and the time and the financial ability to fight back.
Yeah, I get the catharsis with throwing the brick through the window with rioting, and I get why that happens. Unfortunately, as we've learned throughout history, that doesn't actually change a whole lot. There have been instances where it's helped a little bit, but all we're really doing is giving the right, or those who are against us already anyway, is more ammunition to say we're anti-American. Cities are trash heaps. We're just giving them more ammunition to fight against us. And I think some of that does convince people who are in the middle and are like borderline, I don't know which way to vote, but yeah, right, these guys keep rioting and ruining our cities. I can't necessarily vote for that. So we can't give them that ammunition. So we've said this before, even though that the show, we tried to be lighthearted and fun in many occasions, and we talk about cute date ideas with discounts and how to manage your money and improve your credit scores, all those like granular and sort of fun sort of personal finance things. Those are all well and good, but the ultimate purpose of this show is to build the financial security of the LGBTQ plus community, because we just said this on a podcast that we were interviewed for the other day. Your financial security is literally your best form of protest. Because we live in a consumer society, because money is power and power is money, you being financially secure, ideally wealthy, more LGBTQ plus being financially secure, ideally wealthy, and us creating a generational wealth apparatus ourselves, is the best form of protest. We need money. And I understand that we've spent pretty much the week on the couch watching TV and eating garbage food. And I get that if you might not necessarily be ready to get off the couch. But we need to fight back. We can't cower. We can't just hide in our enclaves and just say, it's too stressful out there. I'm just going to focus on Drag Race, brunch, and my cats. We need to have more energy. We need to fight back. Now is not the time to cower, because I think that with Project 2025 and how well organized and well funded that they are, we are going to see some changes, the likes that we've never seen before. And now is just not the time to retreat.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are going to share some ways to be able to improve our financial security starting today.
Yeah, I think the first one is financial security in the organizations that are out there fighting, right? The first one to me is that it is highly likely we're going to see at the state level and maybe at the federal level moves made to take away the power of the organizations that do the work that really fight for our rights. And one of the easiest ways they can take away that power is by taking away the funding of those organizations. And we already know, based on the episodes John mentioned earlier, we know that the Christian right funds the organizations that are taking away our rights. That means that our community needs to fund the organizations that are fighting for our rights.
And I think the thing that most people don't understand is that they've built up such a war chest of money that it's not that they're spending the money that they invest into these causes to fund the hate. They're using the interest that all that money generates. And that's not where we're at. We donate money, and that money immediately goes out and does what it's supposed to do. It finances those organizations. It gets, eventually, some of that gets into the hands of the people who need it. And then we're at a zero balance again, and we got to continue to fund that. We're constantly playing catch up. Our cup never runneth over, right? But the religious right, the organizations, those episodes that we talked about earlier, they are using the interest from the principal that they've invested. So they've got billions of dollars sitting in these accounts generating interest, and that interest is what's building up this war chest. It's fighting against LGBTQ plus people, and we need to start to think likewise.
Yeah, we already have shared this statistic. There are 20 million Americans in the 20 million Americans who identify as LGBT. LGBTQ over the age of 13. There are 14 million of us who identify as LGBTQ who are over the age of 18. That means that if every one of us were to commit to giving just $5 a month to LGBT organizations, that would be $70 million every month going into our local and national organizations. That's less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Could you give up a cup of coffee once a month or once a week or maybe even more? Would you be willing to give that up for a more safe and secure United States for LGBT people? That's the question you need to ask. John and I, when we were paying off our debt, we would ask ourselves this question. Do we want the margarita now, or do we want it on the beach in Mexico? And that's one of the things that helped us not only save up enough money or not only pay off our debt, but also saved up enough money so we could take a vacation as a celebration to paying off our debt. Today, the question that we need to all be asking ourselves is, do I want this now, or do I want safe and security for the LGBT community when we spend our money? And that's why the first one really is, make sure that you are setting up at least a minimum of $5 a month going to as a contribution, a donation to a local LGBTQ organization. That $5 a month, like I just said, if every single one of us did that, $70 million going into these organizations every single month, the lawyers, the politicians, the organizations would be much more secure and comfortable fighting for our rights.
And as we've learned on this podcast before, if you can commit to that minimum or any amount to donate on a monthly basis, set that up as a reoccurring payment to those organizations, that gives them more financial security, and they can plan better if they know the money, or can be a little bit more predictable about what money is coming in to fund their causes. So
yeah, just to let you know, John and I we're here in Toledo, Ohio. We send $25 a month to the local LGBT organization, and then we do sporadic giving throughout the year. But like you said, that means that organization knows that every single year they're going to basically get around $300 from us. Think about that yourself. What could you give? How could you make these organizations stronger?
And those of us who can give more should. Yeah. The other suggestion we have here is we have to do better to support LGBTQ plus businesses. I can't tell you how many LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs that we interact with for this show, for our Yahoo Finance show, people that we meet around the country when we go to speaking events, who just say they struggle to get support from their own community. They have these businesses, whether they're virtual or brick and mortar, and they don't get the support from the LGBTQ plus community. And in many cases, it's hard, right? It's like, I can buy a cheaper version of that product, or maybe even a higher quality version of that product on Amazon. Well, we all know what just happened with Jeff Bezos and the way he denied the
Washington Post.
The Washington, yeah, where he said that the Washington Post couldn't endorse Kamala Harris. So he does not need any more of your money. You know who does need your money? Are small LGBTQ plus businesses. And it's never been easier than it is today to be able to identify those organizations. Yelp now has a filter where you can identify LGBTQ plus businesses in your area. Other places that you can check are directories such as the pink pages, the gay yellow pages, and many local cities have LGBTQ plus chambers of commerce. Using Yelp or doing a simple Google search can probably help you find an LGBTQ plus business in your area, or a business online that you can get the same product or service from, and keep that money within the community and help that LGBTQ plus business stay open. Because the better LGBTQ plus businesses do, the more LGBTQ plus business owners can donate and give to LGBTQ plus causes as well.
Yeah, and oftentimes these are individuals who are taking the lead in our community, right? Individuals who start a business typically have a little bit higher level of confidence. Oftentimes, have a little higher level of education, or at least experience that gives them that education. And oftentimes, these are the individuals who are willing to take charge to try to make things happen, right?
I'll share. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And I think that those are the examples that we need. So if you know of an LGBT business, or you are an LGBT business owner, tell people about other LGBT businesses. The reason why the African-American personal finance community is doing so well right now is because they talk to each other about these kinds of things. They support Black businesses. They get out there and do this stuff. We can do that too, but we also have to remember our community. We have to remember our community needs it just as much as some of these other marginalized communities. So support your LGBTQ business owners.
And I'll share that we know from our own experience, as well as those we talk with, is many LGBTQ plus business owners are very adamant about hiring a large, if not 100%, of their staff to be LGBTQ. And everybody that works for us is part of the queer community. And every opportunity that we get to give them more money, whether it's through a bonus or through increasing their hourly rate, we do that. But and I think that more LGBTQ plus business owners would do that if they could, and they can only do that if they get more revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll get off that soapbox.
Yeah, I think the third one is we need to be more prepared for anything to happen. The reality is there are already people in place who want to take away, and most likely on the very first day, it will be taken away, the right for queer individuals, whether it's sexual orientation or gender identity, for us to be protected from not being fired if we are out, right? And so when those kinds of protections go away, it will be a little bit easier and more, I think, supported by individuals to go ahead and fire queer people. And so that means that we need to be more prepared. And that means that we need to build up our emergency savings. We have to build up our emergency savings. We have 2 months basically right now, right? And I know that this episode is coming out late November, but we basically have 2 months to really start preparing for these kinds of changes. It may be time to start building that fuck you fund. The fuck you to 47, the fuck you to the conservatives, fuck you to the red wave, the fuck you to your boss who now all of a sudden feels comfortable discriminating against you, fuck you to the businesses who feel comfortable discriminating against you. We need that kind of money and safety and security for ourselves. And one of the best ways that we can do that, we're going to be very specific here. We want you to go open up a Capital One 360 savings account. The link for that is in the podcast player or in the description below. But the reason why we're so adamant about this is they have supported our mission. They have supported our mission since 2019, and that is to get this kind of message, to get this kind of financial security, to get this kind of financial stability out to more LGBT people. Not a single queer person has ever had to pay for any of or any part of the 562 episodes that we have created for this podcast. It costs us a minimum of about $25,000 to $30,000 to put this podcast together before John and I even get paid a penny. So that $25,000 to $30,000 is all being sponsored by and taken care of by Capital One. And this is your way of saying thank you for doing that. It's also your way of saying fuck you to the list of people I just talked about. It's also your way of building up the safety and security that you need. And if you already have that, you need to share it, talk about it, and help other LGBT people do this.
We'll share the link to a Capital One 360 account in the podcast player or the show notes if you're on the Queer Money newsletter, as well as in the description if you're watching on YouTube. But just know that the Capital One typically offers some of the best rates out there. I don't want to quote it because then we have to provide all the disclosures and whatnot. But they typically have some of the best rates out there, and the rate right now is quite high relative to what's currently out there, relative to other banks and the Fed cut that we just had recently. So we're not just saying that to just give them money only because they sponsor the podcast, but they do offer some of the best rates out there. The other thing that we want to encourage you to do, and this is certainly not a new recommendation on this podcast, but we can't say it enough because it continues to be a challenge, but become debt-free, pay off your debt. The fastest way you can become debt-free, do it. We need to be, what being debt-free allows you to do is you're able to be more nimble. You're able to respond to emergencies or adversity that comes up more quickly. What it also does is it reduces your financial stress, right? It reduces your financial anxiety. We know from the Motley Fool study that we did in 2021 and 2022, I forget the statistics, but a majority of us are stressing about our finances at a minimum on a monthly basis. Many of us
58% on a daily or weekly basis worry about our money.
Daily or weekly. So there you go. Every week, nearly 60% of us are stressing about our finances. That adds to all the other stress that we're dealing with. If we can pay off our debt and reduce that anxiety even just a little bit, that would be monumental. And then we have much more energy that we can use to help other people, donate our time to the causes that are, or organizations that are fighting for our rights. Come up with more creative ways that we can fight for our rights and protect ourselves. There's just many, 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 many benefits to paying off your debt. So if you need help with that, of course, our other brand is Debt Free Guy. So we have a process to do that. For those who need hope and help getting out of debt, we encourage you to get the credit card debt slasher. We'll also have a link to that in the podcast player, in the description on YouTube, as well as our Queer Money newsletter.
Yeah. And I think that the question is, how can I make all of these things happen? I'll say this. The vast majority of you who listen to this podcast, based on the surveys that we've done, the vast majority of you are in a financial situation where you can't do that. We know that the majority of the individuals listening to the podcast live in households that have incomes that are above $100,000. But there are still a lot of us who may not be able to figure out how to do these things easily. And the last one is going to be one where I think it's a really important one. Our community needs to break its addiction to consumerism. We, as a community, have there was, and I can't remember exactly which one of the studies that was done. More than 60% of us identified as spenders.
The Capital One study from 2022.
Yeah, and so we are identifying ourselves as spenders, and that means that we are using the vast majority of our money to enjoy our lives. And I'm going to say 100%, there's nothing wrong with enjoying your lives. We all want that, right? We all want to have that joy in our lives because of being able to consume things, whether that's food or clothing or vacations or a home. All of those things are 100% okay. But the problem is that America, this election, decided to trade things and our need for things for democracy and our morals. We have become so stuck in this need to have whatever is being advertised on Instagram or TikTok, whatever we're seeing on the YouTube commercials, the things that our clique in the queer community is telling us we have to have. You have to have this kind of makeup when you do your eyes. You have to wear these kinds of clothes. You have to take these kinds of vacations. We are so addicted to consumerism. And the problem is that this consumerism is giving power to the people that made this election happen the way it did. We are literally, as a community, we are also trading our power for things, for momentary enjoyment. For the vast majority of us, our money is spent on momentary enjoyment. We decide to buy the $60 bottle of shampoo and conditioner when we know that the $20 bottle is just as fine, right? It works just as well. And that extra $40 could fund a local LGBT organization. It could pay off your debt. It could help you build your emergency savings. It could, that $40 is the stuff that is the way we're giving away our power. And the vast majority of our time, us spending that amount of money is driving us as a community into financial insecurity. And it is giving certain people a lot of power. I'm going to just call out one of the richest men in the world. I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's Arnault, but he is French. And he is the CEO and owns the majority of the fashion brands that many of us kowtow and bow down to. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Burberry, these kinds of, I don't think Burberry, but there are so many of these major fashion brands that his company owns. And he literally gained $6 billion in wealth the day after the election. Think about that for a second. he gained that $6 billion in wealth. And why? Because he knows, his company knows, the world who invests in his companies, they know that many of us are going to feel the need, the depression that we're having right now, the feels that we're having right now. Many of us will go out and want to make those feelings go away by spending. John and I call this the debt depression spiral. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but many of us feel something and we don't like that feeling. And for many of us, that means going out and buying that gourmet food or that $25 bottle of wine when the $10 bottle of wine is just fine, or going out and saying, okay, I'm going to buy that Louis bag, even though I don't necessarily need it. Or as if you listen to Living Not So Fabulously this month, Tim Gunn literally said, you don't need a $5,000 bag. A $1,000 bag is just fine. Spend the other $4,000 on a local LGBT charity. Tim Gunn said that to us. The man who, in many cases, has encouraged many of us to live a very stylish lifestyle, right? He said, you don't need to spend that much money on these kinds of things. Spend less and put more of it to where it really matters. And I think that that's really why I'm so up on my soapbox about this, is that our community is known for this kind of lifestyle, right? We're known for this. We are the fabulous, right? The reason why many women want a gay best friend is because they help them be more stylish. The reason why the media paints trans and non-binary people the way they do is because many of them are out there adorning themselves in looking very, very beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. But many of us are giving away our power in doing that. So we need to figure out how to cut this addiction. There's several ways that you can do that. One, we encourage you, please do a spending analysis to see where you're really spending your money, because that was part of the way John and I cut our addiction to consumerism, was to see really, really well where we were spending our money. And then the other one is to actually know how much money you're spending on a regular basis. Sign up for a free budgeting app to track your spending. There's a couple of them out there. I'm not going to mention any of them, but there are a couple of them out there that are completely free. Just start paying attention to where you spend your money. Like the two of us, when we realized, when we did our first spending analysis, we were like, holy fuck, this is where we're spending our money? That doesn't align with what our values really are. And that was what I think what was so eye-opening about it. It wasn't that, I mean, granted, it was eye-opening that we found that we were spending $400 a week on dining out, $400 a week on groceries. And this is back in the early 2000s. That would probably be like spending $1,000 today. It was just, not only was it eye-opening for us, but I think the other thing is it was, okay, our spending is not in line with our values, or our values have drifted so far away from what they really should be. Maybe it's time to reassess what our values are.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're asking people. It's time for us as individuals and us as a community to take a step back and ask ourselves, ask yourself personally, do I care more about me and my things and my acquisition of more stuff, or do I care more about my safety, my security, my community, democracy, the direction of this country? That's just sort of the come to Jesus moment that we're all having right now. And now's, like we said, now is not the time to retreat. Now is the time to stand up, as much as I know that, as hard as that sounds. So take these 5 tips that we suggested, try to implement them to the degree that you can in your life. Share them with friends or family who support you, who are allies or who are a part of the LGBTQ plus community. Share this episode, share the show. There are many shows like ours out there trying to build the financial security of the community. Because again, going back to what I said earlier, we talk about some fun and lighthearted things here. We talk about becoming wealthy, and all that is inspiring. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is build the financial security of the community. We've said this from the very beginning. I remember the first time we said this publicly was on stage in Newark, New Jersey, and at the Prudential Center when we were giving a keynote talk. And we said, the stronger we are as individuals, including our financial strength, the stronger we are as a community, including our financial strength. if we have that strength, we have more time, we have more autonomy, we have more energy, we have more resources, and most specifically in this country, we have more money to fight for and protect our rights, more money to give to the organizations, people, and causes who are there to protect and fight for our rights. And that message is, well, I think we said that in 2016 after Trump got elected the first time. So that message is as important now as it ever is. As it ever was. So we hope this is a little bit of a soapboxy episode.
I think that's what we all need right now, right? This is a call to action. This isn't us judging you. This is imploring you, right? We're imploring you to make changes in your life so that you can have financial security. We're imploring you to encourage other people in your community. Let's do this for each other. Let's do this for the financial security and the physical security of our community. There are going to be many people who are going to now be wondering, okay, do I need to leave this state? Do I need to leave this city? Do I need to leave this country? And the vast majority of us would say, yes, I would love to do that, but I just can't fucking afford it. I'm sorry. I've been using the F word a lot this week and during this podcast. And it's just, I think it's, for me right now, it's my word of choice to describe how I'm feeling. I'm tired of what is going on. And I'm disappointed in the direction that our country is going. We were making so much progress, and it's time for us to do something. And so that's what we're saying. Please do something for yourself, for your friends, for your family.
With that, we'll be right back. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.
Thank you for joining us for another episode. Today, our Queer Money takeaway for you is right here. We're not going to tell you to go get the newsletter or read it in the newsletter. Obviously, it will be there. But the important thing here is, please start taking these steps. Figure out which one is the easiest for you to start taking and do it. Check it off your list and move forward. And then please share this information with your queer friends and your supportive family. We all need this kind of information and support of each other if we're going to survive Project 2025.
Then join us this Thursday when we confess a major mistake that we recently made on an episode that we're going to correct. We'll share that with you. And then next Tuesday when we talk about how to successfully transition from work to retirement with Suzanne Campy. Until next time, stay fabulous.